A very warm welcome to this panel discussion. I'm Priya Shade. Joining me on this panel, which is on skincare and the way forward, is a host of experts. We have with us Jatin Gujarati from Vedix. We have Tarun Sharma from mCaffeine and Anand Ramanathan from Deloitte India. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us today. I want to begin with you, Jatin, to talk a little bit about the skincare space in terms of what's been happening, which are the categories that are doing well, and what's been Vedix experience so far.
So actually, Vedic started out as a hair care brand, and we got significant traction. And hair care as a category, we all know is much bigger. But when we launched skincare earlier this year, that traction was fantastic. So it sort of shows that people are spending probably as much time and money on their skin as they are doing on their hair. And what we saw is our regimen-driven approach actually got lapped up pretty. Customers understood that concept because it has moved away from just sort of washing your face to a more involved approach where you have to, and you have, as a customer, you understand that to cleanse, you have to moisturize, you have to use maybe certain actives and serums to bring that, to tackle certain issues that you might be facing in your, as part of your skin regimen. So we saw fantastic response to our skincare launch, and that business scaled up. Yeah.
Right, Tarun, let me bring you in here. Specialist products in the skincare space as well. Tell us a little bit about which categories have been doing well for you overall.
So for us, I mean, we have been from very early days, we have been really heavy on body and face. So largely skincare. Hair is a very relatively newer category for us. But I agree with Jatin, that the whole regimen thing is kind of really shot up, and now inherently the internet consumer understand what product does and what it cannot do, right? Because information is very democratized in the last 5 years, and just after COVID it kind of went up at a very different pace. So for us, scrubs work really well. Body is a strong category, so body scrubs, body butter, body polishing oil. But scrubbing as a whole, I mean, face scrub, foot scrub, scrubbing as a whole works really well because it is very contextual to what mCaffeine brings on table as a regime. But apart from that, skin is body plus face contributes more than 90% of our sales. So we have been really solid in terms of some of categories like scrubs, washes, butters, and oils. And it has only been possible because the internet consumer is much more discerned as compared to what we ever thought it to be. And when tied up with a regimen, you make sure that you're not just selling a face wash or a face scrub because it will do that magic in that 30 seconds. It's a whole holistic approach to your skincare, holistic approach to what care brings to your skin.
Right, Anand, I want to bring you in out here to understand a little bit from an outsider's perspective, looking at the market at large. What kind of trends and trajectory are you seeing as far as the overall skincare industry is concerned?
Great. So I think skincare is doing well. In fact, the beauty and personal care market is expected to grow in strong double digits over the next 5 years. And it is primarily going to be led by 3 or 4 trends, right? So the first trend is a lot of focus on tier 2 and tier 3 beyond the urban pockets, right? So online has really facilitated distribution to these places. So that's going to be a big driver. The second is to look at bringing in global products, particularly from a pandemic standpoint. Some of the behavior patterns of consumers have changed, and therefore we will see greater focus on categories which are more relevant now, especially when you're working from home and in that context. So again, there will be a rejuggle in terms of the portfolio, which will drive new product launches in this space. Third, we are seeing a lot of deal activity also. In fact, if you just look at this year, we've seen a lot more from a deal standpoint. It's almost 2.5x of what it was last year, right? So these are going to be some of the 3 key trends driving this space going forward.
Right. Thanks for that, Anand. Jatin, I want to talk a little bit about the whole ingredients-based space. When you look at the whole space, there is this whole organic market that's really coming up in a very big way. We're seeing lots of brands launch organic specific products out there in the market versus just fragrance and generic beauty products that were there in the market earlier. So tell us a little bit about how you see this market growing, and from Vedic's perspective, considering that you all are looking at the whole organic market at large. Tell us a little bit about how this market is expected to grow.
See, I think generally from an industry perspective, customers are, as you rightly said, looking at more ingredient-driven products because they understand that, as Tarun says, very democratized, right? Now they can do their research on understanding whether what neem does for you, and what aloe vera does for you, and what nimba does for you, tulsi does for you. So accordingly, you pick products which are right for you, versus a generic, all-in-one sort of a cream. As far as Vedix as a brand is concerned, we obviously leverage ingredients in the pursuit of that particular issue at hand. So it's a very customized regimen, right? So you come in with a dry skin and an acne issue, and with a certain kind of a prakriti. So therefore, we give you certain a regimen which has certain ingredients that pacifies those prakritis and also help you with those regimen with issues. So for us, ingredients have always been a strong, important part of the regimen, but in the service of the end cause, really. So it's like we were already there, and now the customer is now waking up to the fact that, okay, yes, probably having this ingredient in my regimen will help me solve this particular issue. For example, tea tree might help with acne, or a neem might help with XYZ. So that is really helpful. And in fact, if you see the trends now on the way customers search for certain products, it actually starts from ingredient versus issue. So, for example, customers might earlier search for a dandruff problem, or let's say a dry skin problem. Now they probably will search for, in case of mCaffeine, I'm sure, a coffee face wash, or tea tree moisturizer, right? Stuff like that. So I think this whole shift towards ingredient is there, and it's going to happen, and brands are increasingly embracing it, as we can see clearly. Yeah.
Right. Tarun, I want to understand what's in the pipeline for you at mCaffeine. Is there some specific, categories that you're looking at launching into within the skincare space?
Right. So I think we largely have always been believers of concentration as a brand. When ingredient-based brands are a conversation right now, but 5 years back when we started, people said, why don't you do something solution-based, right? But at the end of the day, in India, Marico has owned coconut, Himalaya has owned neem, Dove has owned milk, and Bajaj has owned almond. So historically, India has always been an ingredient-based country. So for us, it has always been concentration of how we do at mCaffeine. So revenue by product density is very, very much important. So we can continue to launch product, but at the same time, we need to continue to make sure that revenue by product density as a metric remains important. So we recently launched this body wash. It's in the shape of a cup of coffee. This plastic is infused with coffee and makes it more biodegradable. And it has been a super hit. So we'll continue to launch very innovative kind of products in the categories which are already there. But innovation has been a far-fetched idea in these categories for a very long time. So we'll continue to double click on sunscreens. Lip body wash was the first launch we did after a very long time in body, and it's still, we have sold more number of units of our earlier bestseller in the last 6 months, and we have sold it in just 2 months. Every 2 seconds we are selling this product. So we continue to launch very innovative products in the categories which are already present, and make sure we are pushing the envelope of making highly efficacious products by way of introducing caffeine into these categories.
Right, interesting perspective out there, Anand. You said that investments into this space have really come in significantly over the last couple of months. Do you think that this space will continue to be a heated space? Like we've seen the Nykaa go public. It's a beauty brand. Can we expect more such traction within the space?
Definitely. This is going to be a space which will see heightened deal activity because of some of the trends that we've just been hearing from Jatin and Tarun, right? You have a lot of new startups, you have a lot of growth players, you have private equity investment in this space, right? So given that consumer trends are changing, there is greater need for ingredients or personalization or more innovation in products. There will be attractive propositions for many of the existing players to also ramp up their portfolio, right? So an acquisition is a quick way to grow. And some of the valuations in this space are still a lot more attractive, especially in the small and mid cap compared to other sectors. So we will see heightened investor activity. We will also see greater focus on India as a market, and therefore you will see a lot of global interest in India. And one of the routes for entry could also be through acquisitions.
What is your view on valuations in the market? Do you think valuations are very high at this point?
See, when you're talking new sectors, when you're talking online, e-commerce, etc., valuations will have traditionally been high, right? So that will continue. But what is important is the fit that some of these acquisitions have with the existing portfolio, and the incremental audience that they can bring to you, right? In terms of customers that large global players or large Indian players can acquire. So in that sense, it's all going to be a trade-off between fit and customer acquisition vis-a-vis the valuations.
Right, Jatin, I want to understand from your perspective what's in the pipeline at Vedix. We're entering a new calendar year as well. I'm sure you have your launches also planned out accordingly. So, give us a little bit of insight into that.
Sure. I mean, we have been pushing the pedal on launches in the last few months. In fact, recently we launched the first base booster concept in hair oil, where you have a base oil which is already very potent, then you can add boosters or bring a Amla ki, Kumari, depending on the issue at hand, to further enhance its potency with more than 500 possible combinations. Right. So we will continue to bring out new and innovative concepts from an efficacy perspective for the customer for which the brand is known. We are working on something very exciting in the base booster for the skin category. We are working on a couple of other categories which will get launched in the next 2 to 3 months, which is body care and baby care, because we want to bring the goodness of Ayurveda in all aspects of the way customer interacts with the beauty and personal care category as a whole, right? So wherever there's a need or there's a solution that Ayurveda can offer from a customer's perspective, we will make sure that we bring out a product to tackle those, to meet those aspirations. Yeah.
Right, Tarun, what's the roadmap for the next calendar year? Can we expect more launches, more investments out there? What can we expect?
So the next calendar year would be really, really interesting for us. We have crossed the cardinal number of that 100 crores, which used to take a decade. We took close to about 3 odd years to reach there. So the brand has been growing more than 100% year on year. So we'll continue to do that. But if I double click on our plans, I think product launches will continue to happen. We'll continue to add innovation into the existing categories, but distribution is very important for us. We have been the only brand which has crossed 100 crores and never went offline, because we were really large believers of internet. But at this point of time, we believe offline has been opened up by a lot of customers. Customers has been asking our products to be placed in modern trade, general trade. So distribution is going to expand. By December next year, we should be close to about 10,000 stores. But as founders, we have been really optimistic about caffeine, and you don't have to explain your coffee across the globe. So international is one of the things which we have been really keen on, and we are getting tremendous amount of interest from geographies where coffee culture has been prominent, but geographies where coffee culture we believe is growing like India, right? So international offline will be the biggest drivers of growth for us, apart from obvious product launches.
Right. Anand, I want to talk to you a little bit about the competitive intensity in the market out there. We've seen so many new brands enter the market. Every other week, we have a new D2C brand that's entering the beauty and skincare space. And differentiating elements don't seem to be very, big drivers for these brands, because they come across as Me Too brands into the market. So tell me a little bit about what your perspective is on this competitive intensity in the market, and how do you see the dynamics of this shaping up in 22?
Yes. So from a competitive intensity standpoint, this is a discretionary category, right? So there will always be the need for experimentation and for new product innovation. So to that extent, more players brings in a greater level of innovation across small benefits and attributes in the product itself. And therefore, to that extent, this will continue, because even the D2C market, if you see, it's about grabbing attention and grabbing customers right now, right? So it's still a customer acquisition-led story. So to that extent, we will see a launch of many new offerings, and many of them will use D2C to scale up. But at a certain level, they will start looking at the physical aspects of the business also, right? And therefore, they will have to look at investment for brick and mortar, etc., which will bring in the interest from the larger players, right? So for every brand which succeeds, we'll probably have 9 brands which fail, right? So to that extent, it is a sign of any growing market. And in India, particularly now, discretionary income is available. I mean, beyond food services, when people are under lockdowns, they really can't go for other product categories for consumption, right? So personal grooming and wellness becomes important, and it's a good way to feel good, right? In terms of the investment on self. So to that extent, we will continue to see D2C interest in this space, and we will see many brands enter and then be acquired by larger players.